All right, all right.
All right. Another episode of Shards and Shenanigans. I'm here for some shards, but I'm mostly here for the shenanigans. I'm your co-host, Kyle, and with me...
Hey, this is Christopher, not to be confused with Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right. But, we are definitely fans of saying all right. So, welcome back. My Shards and Shenanigans out there, my misty boys, gals, they, thems, my missed people. We appreciate you.
Whoever you are, including our moms.
Oh, yeah. Hey, moms.
We are ready to jump back in with another episode here. We've got on deck this week chapters 20 through 23, 4 chapters here, and a couple of them are very exciting. Just like last week when you listened to us, I heard, or you would have heard me talk about texting Christopher and be like, oh my god, I love what I'm reading right now, and that happened again this week, so it's always fun when you're really enjoying what you're reading, and it's a good couple chapters. So
for sure, it's gonna be a good pace, and yeah, these are good. They're juicy. I think it's a good chunk here. So yeah, man. Well, I'm pretty stoked myself. And what do you say? I feel like starting off the day here with a snack.
Yeah, you want to hit it?
Absolutely. It wasn't until a few years later that I began to notice the signs. I knew the prophecies. I am a terrorist worldbringer, after all. And yet, not all of us are religious men. Some, such as myself, are more interested in other topics. However, during my time with Alendi, I could not help but become more interested in the anticipation. He seemed to fit the signs so well. Yeah, this one's interesting. I still think it's Quan. That's like kind of where I'm at, but definitely like kind of a different perspective. I think it's almost like a different place in time, because like we know that Quan later really denounces Alendi from being the the hero of ages and being the that being the person who's like fulfilling the prophecies of the terrorist worldbringers, and having to deal with this anticipation. So it seems like we're still in the stage here where he's writing, where he's like convincing himself, almost like this is further back than the last couple we've been reading.
I don't know. I mean, I think with how everything is so past tense here, like it wasn't until a few years later he seemed to fit it. Like, I almost feel like this is, if it's part of like a greater script that is on the on the steel slab,
right?
That this is more of just like a retelling or a recounting of like at that time. I was all this, but it wasn't until a few years later that I started to notice the signs.
For sure. No, that's a good point. I think, I see where you're coming from there. But I also think that one thing that's like kind of tucked in there that's interesting to me is some, such as myself, are interested in other topics. And so, like, what topics? Like, where are we going with that? That's interesting because so far, like, he has been talking about him as this religious figure, as this, other thing. So I feel like it's almost some foreshadowing of a subject change for Quan in these, and maybe like some deeper lore. And also kind of like, I know Sazed like recorded all this down because we're trying to like find out more about the terrorist religion, and so it's kind of like,
right.
Well, then what are we getting into here? So, it's a good one.
Well, I feel like it has some parallels to what we're seeing with the terrorist keepers. Obviously, not the same thing that we think, but obviously what we've seen so far with Tindwyl is that she's interested in the history of kings and monarchs and history, and Sazed is all about religions. And so here some people are religious and he's interested in other things. So I don't know, certainly some parallels with the same kind of people, thousands of years apart. And we get another word here that we've had before, Worldbringer, the terrorist Worldbringer, and we don't yet know what that is.
How does that relate to like the keepers? Maybe like, is this some kind of like holdover from a structure of the Worldbringers that like moves over into what ever creates like the Synod, which is we know as the ruling body of the Keepers, and so like because that's been mentioned before. So yeah, that's interesting, Kyle. I think that's a good it's a good call out.
Well, thanks. I think before we jump into the main meal on chapter 20, I'll just preface. I've got a little. If you hear some odd noises in this recording, I've got some. I've got a obviously full podcast studio. It's real legit over here as I sit in my guest bedroom, and there is a lot of construction noise outside today. So if you hear some hammering of some steel, or you hear some plinking of some nails, or whatever it might be,
it's all intentional sound effects.
It's pretty much intentional sound. Yeah. We're just trying to really liven up the podcast and give you guys what you want, which is construction noises.
High quality. Shout out to like those companies out there, Sound Booth Theater, like we, we're just trying to aspire to the greatness set by our,
some idols.
Yes, some idols. Yeah, well said. Absolutely.
So, all right, jumping into the main meal, chapter 20. So we are here in a Vin perspective, but it is Elend meeting with the crew to discuss the plan. And in attendance are Vin and Orsur. We've got Doxson and Tindwyl, Ham, Clubs, and Breeze. And so she's thinking as Elend's talking that he does look more commanding, and that lots of things seem to be in fact changing about him, and she's kind of pondering these changes. And she also has some choice thoughts here about Tindwyl and Tindwyl's ability to get Elend to do things and to kind of take action where maybe Vin wasn't able to get him to change some things that she wanted to change, or get him motivated to make some changes, but Tindwyl's having that kind of effect. Right. And she's worried, which we're seeing again, this repeated theme, that Elend might not need her anymore. And like, what could that mean if this person that I love doesn't need me? We saw parallels to that and those feelings that she had with Kelsier and the crew in the Final Empire of like, what if they don't need me anymore, or they leave me behind, and kind of some of those abandonment type issues that she's been working through. So good parallels there, I think, to the first book. And the plan is for Elend to enter Straff's camp alone, right? That's what they're discussing, how they're going to move forward with these two armies outside of the city, and especially right now, what are we going to do with Straff? And so Elend wants to meet in the camp alone and meet with Straff. That's the only way Straff will meet, is in person in his own camp. And the crew are, again, bringing up objections and concerns, but Elend is convinced that Straff underestimates him, and by walking in alone and by telling Straff they're on his side, Elend will be able to convince him to attack Set with his help. And by walking into the camp alone, Elend is essentially, he thinks, telling Straff that Straff has authority over him. Like, he's almost ceding his, like, yes, you are the rightful,
ruler.
Right, the rightful king. I am just your son.
Right.
And so this is, I think, what am I trying to say? I had a thought, but anyway, I'll cut this part out when you listen to this.
Oh no, kind of a risky plan he's got here. Like
it's a risky plan.
Yeah. And the crew is a little bit hesitant.
Well, they're talking about like what happens if he just takes you prisoner,
right?
And Elend's like, well, if that happens, you let me die before you ever open up the city and let him in.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, good on him for being having some fearless things to say. I know he has fear and certainly is feeling overwhelmed and uncertain, but he's saying the right things, I think, and. Yeah. He says that the crew here, despite the objections, that it's time to listen to him. Food's running low in the city, that it's time to move, and if they don't do this, they're all going to die, basically, is what he says. He says it's not a discussion anymore. He's made his decision. And he's kind of has to thread the line in this plan of getting Straff to want the strength of the city, as a tool, while also dismissing the will of the city and its people. And Elend kind of has to sell the story in between those two things.
Right.
And,
totally.
There's more concerns from the crew that, hey, this isn't just, this isn't just politics. This is scamming, right? Like, we are the scammers.
Yeah, right.
You have not historically done that.
Breeze,
and,
yeah.
You know, they just more questions of how's that going to work and what's he going to do. And Ellen, again, on the I can do this train. And so Ellen, they move forward. Ellen has Dox draft a letter to his father. And he decides, kind of as he's having the letter draft, to bring Vin with him. He's not actually going to do this alone. He says, "Tell Dad I want to introduce him to someone special," you know?
Yeah.
And bringing a girl home for Christmas. And Vin thinks that, hey, this is a good idea. I can protect Ellen while I'm there, especially since Traff has his own Mistborn, Zane, who we've seen.
Yeah.
And Ellen says, like, hey, tell him that there's no deal. Tell Straff, no deal if I can't bring Vin. So, you know, and kind of I wonder, you know, Vin does have these thoughts, and we don't necessarily see anything further from her outside of, like, oh, you know, I can protect him and stuff. But I also would feel like she's probably having some of those feelings. I think we're going to see this a little later about, oh, then I get to also see Zane.
Yeah, I think so.
This
I think
this mysterious guy who she's kind of infatuated with in this like mystical and like curious way, right? Like, who is this guy? What is he to me? You know, we're both Mistborn. That's exciting, you know.
They share this kind of like secret connection that she hasn't been really sharing with anybody else other than like, I think like Orsur is aware of it in a way, and he like kind of calls it out in a couple spots in the past, and I think he definitely is like privy to the goings-ons, but he keeps her, you know, he's following the contract, and and he's keeping it close to the chest, as she is. So yeah, I think you're onto something there for sure.
So Vin is having self-deprecating thoughts about not being the right person for Ellen here, and that he deserves a normal woman, you know, someone that he feels like he can protect as opposed to the other way around.
Right.
You know, someone he can take care of.
She
and she questions, him. Right. Oh, you know, just more self-deprecating, more feelings of insecurity in their relationship, and you know, despite the fact that he's telling her, "You're what I want." You know, she's convincing herself that he needs something else. You know, that she's not good enough, or maybe she's not right enough, and
well, it's a little convenient too, considering the like interest in Zane and things like that. I mean, it's like kind of pseudo justifying those explorative thoughts. You know,
sure.
Like, she's like trying to be like, oh well, like Ellen really shouldn't end up with me, right? Like, you know, it's interesting.
Oh, super interesting. I think you're exactly right. That like, it all ties into her feelings, and I think we're going to see later, and I think it's a later chapter, probably 23, I think, here at the end. We're going to see kind of some concerns brought up on the other end from Ellen, kind of in the same vein. So it'll all tie together, I think, and kind of really, I think, hit with what you're saying and what I'm saying, and I think we're right on. So
I'm stacking what you're splitting.
Nice, dude. Stack that wood.
Yeah, that's right.
And Vin is questioning, like, why am I thinking about our relationship so much? And then she starts to think about Zane.
Yeah.
And his comments about, well, we don't belong in their world. We belong here in the mists. We get, you know, moving past Vin and the relationship and the insecurities around that right now. We're seeing the assembly in Luthadel that Ellen has created they're growing restless. You know, this meeting, if he does meet with Straff, is really supposed to unleash them from their agreement with Ellen to like keep the city locked down. You know, the original agreement was, hey, you know, official parlay with Straff. Once that happens, you guys can vote on whatever you want. And Ellen says, hey, guys, this isn't an official parlay. We're just, you know, we're just hanging out. Right. I'm just meeting him. You know, it's my dad.
Yeah, it's kind of naive, honestly, from like a political standpoint. Like, what are they going to think?
Well, naive, I think, maybe, but also very politically, I think, on topic for like even things happening in our like now in society of just like here's one thing that you're seeing, But here's the thing:
Here's
we're telling
what
you
I'm
it
actually
is.
doing. Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
It's
Which
just him
is
playing the game.
well, right. It's him playing the game. It's definitely him playing the game, and I agree with you there. But I think it's not gonna pan out. And like, you know what I mean? Like, because you're just assuming that pulling the wool over people's eyes is gonna, it's gonna work for them. And that's like, just from that's my perspective. But
Well, and to tie your perspective into Vince's perspective of, hey, these two guys in the assembly that are really pretty powerful and seem to have the ears of lots of people, like, can't really pull the wool over their eyes either, you know? And I can't remember their names right now. I'd have to go back, but...
And it's Penrod is the head of, like, the noble side, and then there's the guy that's the head over...
The merchants.
Oh, we've only gotten one mention, but he'll definitely be back. Yeah, I can't remember either right now. Good call, but yeah, no, I think it is interesting, and there's some other good like explorations here by Vin as she's like looking over the crew too. I kind of liked where it goes there as she like moves off of herself and kind of focuses more on her mission to uncover the imposter. And that's like pretty exciting. So yeah, I've been enjoying that part as well. Cause she kind of, I don't know, there's a good part about, kind of assessing each person. And then she starts to actually like assess them with her allomancy and like looking at them kind of that way.
Yeah. I looked it up. It's Phylon.
Nice. Okay, cool. I was doing my best to create some
it's
space
okay.
there.
I found it.
Yeah, nice. Because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
You're good. So right, he is saying, hey, this isn't an official parlay, but the Assembly has some other things they need to meet with him about. Fraudulent coins are being passed in the city, and they want to meet. And Ellen's like, nope, maybe next week. I don't have time for this. I'm planning the defense of the city. And Ellen is really playing him here, as we discussed. And Ellen's like, I'll smooth it all over on the back end. It'll be fine. And he's very decisive about this, which is a lot different from, I feel like how timid he probably was when he was first making these decisions with the crew. And Vin thinks about how much he's changed. And it's all, I think, obviously attributed to Tindwyl and the things that she's doing with him. And Vin's looking at the crew here, like you're talking about, for discrepancies in their personalities and hoping to find the Khandra. And she can invent discrepancies. And, she's looking at him, she's like, well, he's talking a little louder than he normally does, or he's a little softer,
Spook's like talking
more
more
animated.
clearly. He's not using his like thieves' cant as much, and his ham too happy. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And she just is like, well, I mean, I can invent something about all of them, right? Like they're all
right.
Who knows? And so she really needs to rely on her allomancy, and she uses her bronze to feel for allomancy, and identifies Breathes, who is soothing Elend. And at first, she kind of she goes to the worst thought, and she's like, fucking Breathes, like, that scoundrel, always soothing people, get what he wants. And she, I think, uses her Duralumin very interestingly here as this mega pulse, burns off everything that she's doing with her bronze all at once, and can start to actually decipher what exact soothing feeling that Breeze is transporting or transplanting onto Elend. And it's this anxiety, nervousness, worry, and insecurity on repeat. But then she has the realization, no. This is not Breeze giving him those things. These are the things he's soothing away.
Yeah.
And that he's trying to make Ellen feel more confident and more empowered. And then she has this kind of revelation that, Breeze is this good guy. He's a good man. He might not show it. He might not act like it. But underneath the kind of playboy exterior is this someone who actually cares and wants to help. And so I thought that was pretty cool for Breeze.
I loved it. Yeah,
to show that side.
Yeah, no, it was really cool, and like it just kind of frames the character because he's always kind of like been a smart mouth and kind of a jerk to everybody around him. So it was cool to see it manifests this way secretly. The secret motivations of Breeze, Lord Ladrian.
Lord Ladrian. So we get a perspective change here to Elend. The meeting's over, and Vin and Ursur are the last to leave. And Elend's here now alone with Tindwyl, and she immediately just starts, harping on him again, calls him an embarrassment. And he's self-conscious about, like, the state of his study here. It's very kind of dirty and untidy. His books are everywhere. She's told him that he needs to let the servants come in and clean and keep it stately. But he is kind of being obstinate about it and likes his books where they are. Mm-hmm. And through this process, she reminds him, hey, you're a king. Like, no one lets you do things. You just do them. And, like, that's how it should be. And that he needs to be more commanding in the crew. Like, you should command respect. Stop going by El or Elend. They need to be calling you Majesty or Lord from now on.
Right.
Like, if your counselors don't respect you, your enemies certainly aren't going to respect you. So, we got to keep moving forward on this path of you are a king. And
yep. Can't be everybody's buddy.
Nope. It's you are in a different class now. And he asks Tindwyl about that and says, why can you call me Elend? And she says, well, I'm different. And then he commands her to, and she smiles, and it says, as you wish, like I'll obey you, essentially. Mm-hmm. And he then noticed this, when he's nervous or he's working through things, he's clenching his fists as he's talking. And so Tindwyl here also recognizes it and says, hey, you got to stop doing that too, and that you're hedging too much. And your language and your body language, and you're appearing timid and hesitant, and tells them, hey, don't apologize unless you really mean it. Stop making excuses.
Right.
Anything that goes wrong is his responsibility. He needs to stop sulking about it, and he just needs to get to work. Just own that shit.
Don't get hung up on it.
Keep moving along. Acknowledge it and get back at it. And so she tells him, if he's not the best king, that he needs to remove himself.
Right.
And that the best way to do it, as long as he has an heir, is by suicide.
Yeah.
And he's like, so you're literally telling me right now I should go kill myself? And she's like, no, what I'm really saying is, you need to have pride. Pride in yourself, to be you're the best. A belief that I can do this. And he has doubts again here, and he starts thinking about Kilseer should be in charge, and he voices that to her, and she's yells at him.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's enough. You're the best. The only worst thing that an incompetent leader is not having one at all. And if we don't have you, you're the glue keeping all this together. You're the only one that could have kind of kept Luthadel afloat for the last year. And despite the fact that you are, need to grow and need to be better in some areas, you are the right man for the job. You just have to go through this growth phase.
Totally.
And successful leaders all believe that they can do a better job than the alternative. And so that's where the pride comes in, pride in himself, pride in his ability, and pride in his capabilities.
Yeah, right.
And Tindwyl really shifts here, and she asks Elend why he hasn't married Vin yet. And he's kind of like, whoa, he's like, it's kind of complicated. And she starts to question him if Vin is right. And Elend kind of now, I don't know if he yells, but he certainly escalates and gets very defensive. Tindwyl really liked this coming out of him.
Yeah.
And that it was kind of a test to see, hey, you are, you're able to be direct and assertive when it's about something that you're passionate about. And so, let's apply that to the kingship, right?
Right.
And Tindwyl says love can cause problems, but it's not necessarily a reason to give up on Vin, and that there can be occasional exception to Tindwyl's rules, which I thought was a fun bending thing.
Yeah,
and Elend finds it interesting here.
Right. She doesn't seem to bend on much else, but she definitely was willing to make a path for this, which was cool.
Well, and she, when we first met Tindwyl, she was thinking, you guys make an interesting couple, and
right.
So I think she has some even maybe ulterior motives than just love. I think she kind of sees them as almost maybe a power couple. Like if she can sort them both out.
Right. Yeah, cool.
So, and then to wrap it up, Ellen's been taking his lessons, and he's all bruised up from learning the sword and the dueling cane.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
Demo arrives, or Demu, and he's got a messenger from Set, and it's Set's daughter, and she is looking for Breeze.
Ooh. Well, yeah, great chapter there. I'm excited to get to the next one. But, yeah, a little recap. Just like really Ellen manifesting a lot of the teachings of Tinwell here and his kind of like his new look. And I think it's cool. And it seems to be well received from the crew. I think he definitely is like demanding a little bit more attention and like noticing in some ways where he would be probably like talked over or disagreed with, that the crew is starting to like trust him a little bit more with that kind of stuff. Not like fully all on board yet, but definitely they are like, yeah, hearing out his plan, and he's being very direct, and right. He thinks it went really well, but Tinwell is like very just goals focused and like, hey, we need to be better. We can always be better. We're not gonna just give up here. So yeah, pretty cool. And I just love the discovery of the inner Breeze, and it's part of what makes me love the character is that like he is so confrontational and difficult to deal with like from the outside, but he's constantly has this ulterior motive underneath to help everybody around him. So yeah,
sure, no, yeah. I think it's good seeing different side of characters that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
It really rounds them out. And I think it just plays into going back to Kelsier, why he picked people to be in the crew in the first place,
exactly.
Right? Like he didn't just pick scoundrels and people that were like, well, he's a good Alamancer and that's all I'm looking for. Like he picked
the right people.
The right people. People with, at the end of the day, they're going to make the right decision and good hearts. So, but 21, I think, is my favorite chapter, maybe, of the book so far.
It's pretty great. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I laughed my ass off the entire time.
Yeah, it's very fun.
I thought it was hysterical, and so I'm ready to rip. Dude.
Yeah, me too. Short but sweet snack here up in the front. I'll just get it out of the way here. Little bite
get
here.
Rid of that.
Yeah, he was born of a humble family, yet married the daughter of a king. There's a lot packed into that sentence. Pretty interesting. Who we don't know anything about this woman. Really, I don't think anything's been mentioned about her at all. So that one is very interesting, and kind of a little bit more of the origins of like, well, humble family to like marrying royalty. Like, is that because he became the prophet, the prophesized person, or what's going on there? So yeah, very, very interesting. But I'm more concerned about a different young woman.
I'd like to let's regurgitate that snack for just a second. I think there could be, if we're reading this book and this series, right?
Yeah.
And we've got Vin as basically the main character, right? We all thought it was Kelsier, and then it changes, and now it's Vin. And clearly there's a lot going on here, and if the prophecies haven't actually been met and there's no Hero of Ages yet, who is the Hero of Ages going to be? Could it be Vin? She's pretty much the most powerful Mistborn that we've seen. Zane has her matched on some stuff, and he's better in some areas, but for 2 years in, she's crushing it.
It should have been the Lord Ruler,
I would just like to say, what kind of parallel can we draw to Vin and Lindy? So, if Lindy, if there's all these prophecies and now we're seeing, he's born of a humble family yet married the daughter of a king. Well, Vin was born not even of a humble, but like a lowly family, someone like Scott, right? And she's practically married into royalty. I mean, she's with the king, with also the son of someone who's claiming he's the king. Like, I think there could just be a lot of again, parallels from this kind of path of, hey, here's a Lindy, here's the things he was doing that people saw to make him the chosen one, the hero of ages. And then here are some things that Vin's kind of checking off that no one might necessarily be looking at that and saying, but or maybe someone is. Well, I guess I don't know. I guess if we don't have all the data as far as what people were looking for, because we don't have the terrorist religion figured out yet, the prophecies. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. I
like it. It's a good
I have some. Yeah, I want to look at that.
Yeah, I dig it. Hell yeah. Well, that is juicy, and I'll swallow it twice.
Thanks, buddy. The sacrifices we make.
Yeah, no, it was good. It's a good snack. Well, sweet, dude. Yeah, pretty exciting here. Coming in a light red silk shawl with lace sleeves. Enter
Alrian. Alrian Set.
Yeah.
She is here, and she's a slightly plump 18-year-old daughter of Lord Ashweather Set, and she squeaks when she walks in the door, and she sees Breeze. He walks in, I guess, and she squeaks when he walks in, and she throws herself at him. Yeah. And Ham and Ellen are kind of looking at each other in shock, and we learn, hey, Ham was kind of right here. He had joked about, hey, how'd you get so close to Lord Ashweather? Like, how'd you get in? Like, were you knocking boots with his daughter? Ha 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 ha. Well, here's kind of what's going on, right? And Breeze is looking uncomfortable. Yeah. And he's blushing. And Ellen's asks her, why are you here? Have you been sent as an ambassador? Well, not exactly. And she is seeking asylum, and she says, hey, my father's manipulative. He brought her on a war party, and I'm not getting hot baths, and the soldiers look at me like I'm a piece of meat whenever they see me, and I can't even bathe without, them trying to catch a peek, and she hasn't had a refined convo in weeks until Breeze arrived in camp, and, she said, Breezy must have told you how my father is. Dude, it's amazing. She's got
a cutesy little nickname for him.
Dude, it just keeps getting better. And so, she then saw her father, she's like, I saw my father drive Breeze away, and Ham asks, okay, well, because. And Breeze just kind of coughs to try to be like, oh, well, we know what I was talking about. And she completely ignores it, and she says she's seeking asylum. She knows things. I can be an asset to you. And she's like, did you know we're getting all of our food from a cannery in Haverfax?
Yeah. So she's giving away secrets without any deal. It seems like very not strategically wise to be giving up this information. It's very interesting.
And Ellen here with that info is pretty much just like, oh yeah, great, because obviously they know about this.
Yeah.
But he's like, so how'd you come to see Breeze? Why are you here? You came to see him? And she kind of flushes, and she said, well, I just had to see him again. He's charming, and he's wonderful. And, my daddy wouldn't understand a man like Breeze.
Yeah. And we're getting there.
and just we're wrapping up and ramping up. And Ellen says, okay, you can stay. Go get refreshed. He kind of nods to, which I thought this was interesting, nods to one of the palace stewards who we get a name here for, Caden.
Oh, yeah.
And nods to him and says, hey, there's rooms available. Hey, yeah, we got space for her. And she hugs Breeze and almost hugged Ellen, and then kind of thought better of it. And then she pops off. And so I thought with the name drop of Caden, and it just kind of put this thought in my head of if we're naming a servant who is really if this is his only time he's going to pop up, why are we naming him? And so it just wonders what's going on in the future, and it makes me feel like he could be the Khandra.
Right, because he's another suspect, and probably not an Allomancer, he's a house steward, so good catch there. I think that's a good thing to look out for, is obviously like named people.
Who could this be? Yeah.
Right. It's definitely more of a reveal when they're a named character than like, oh, the
For
not
sure.
named character is the imposter. Got ya.
Right.
Like,
Gotcha.
okay.
You're like,
Sure.
who was that?
Yeah. Don't care.
So, Alarian, she's out the door, and Bree sighs when she's gone, and Ham and Ellen immediately literally collapse to the floor and are just in hysterics. And Dachshund's even smiling, which, like, getting that guy to crack a smile has to be, like, one of the hardest things you can do. And Breeze is like, I don't see what's funny. And Ham said it's the image of Breeze being hugged by that, in quotes, courtly fluff cake. And Breeze being confronted by an irrational young woman. And Dachshund's like, man, I thought we were done with girl drama once we got rid of Kelsier.
Never
like,
thought this was
any
you.
more.
Yeah, like, never thought it'd be
and
you. Right.
Breeze is just like, her affections are misplaced.
This isn't my fault.
Yeah. And Vin's walking in and she's like, hey, who's this girl that I just passed in the hallway who's telling the servants the temperature of her bath and what kind of food she likes?
Yeah.
And they explain it to her. And Breeze, like, building on that comment, is like, hey, yeah, we're probably gonna have to hire a new pastry chef on. She really likes her sweets. And I'm just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, and so it's
it's great.
I literally have in my
fun.
notes like LOL, LMFAO, ha 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 ha. Like, that's I loved it. And so
It's a great scene.
When
Everyone's giving him lots of shit.
Oh my god. And when Ellen says Breeze and Alarian are an item, Breeze takes so much. He's like, excuse me? And Vin's like, ew, he's
You're
old
sick.
and she's young.
Yeah.
And she's like, the girl sounds like she's 12. And Breeze is like, well, like, he kind of flips. And he's like,
Yeah.
starts defending her.
Yeah.
And he's like, like, you shouldn't say that about her. And he
I'm
brings
not
up Vin and
that old.
Kelsier.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not that old. And he brings up Vin and Kelsier, which is like, he's like, I remember a young Vin pining over Kelsier.
Snap, smack.
And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, he's like a father figure to me. And he's like, well, maybe at the end, but what was he
In the
initially?
beginning,
And he's just kind of like, defending himself and getting really like catty with it.
Yeah. for sure.
And Ellen, I love this here.
Ellen
he kind of
does
puts a stop to
not like
that.
it. Yeah.
He's like, hey, like, we're done with this. Like, you're not going to talk about Vin and Kelsier in that way. And everyone listened.
Yeah.
So good on Ellen.
Yep.
And so after talking with the group, Ellen decides that the girl, like, again, can stay for a bit, and maybe they can use her as a bargaining chip. Maybe they can give her back. Regardless, it's going to give them some time to negotiate with Set. And Breeze is like, well, we should be considering what the girl wants. Like, we shouldn't just be making decisions for her. Like, we should take into her considerations with her how we move forward. And everyone's kind of looking to Ellen now to make these decisions, which I think is a lot different from even a few weeks ago, pre-Tindwill.
Right.
And that, like, it's really working, right? Like, when they're like, well, what do we do? Before they would just kind of talk about it. And now it's like, what do we do? They might talk about it for a second, and then they just everyone's head turns, and they're looking at Ellen and being like,
what's the call?
all right, man,
Yeah.
well, what's the call? So he's getting some respect, I think, amongst the crew, and they're certainly seeing him as a leader.
Right.
And when you dress and act like a leader, people probably treat you like one. And so,
Yeah. I think I was a little ahead of myself last chapter, but it's like all in the same like time space. But yeah. Like this is really where they're kind of really leaning in on like, all right, make the call.
Yeah. Make this decision, and so he makes the decision here, and Breeze is relieved.
Yeah,
relieved that his little
Ariane
fluff cake can stay. So that's the end of
little pink
chapter
thing.
21.
As Vin calls her, what was that little pink thing I saw running down the hallway? Breeze is like, that's red.
Yeah.
This is phenomenal chapter. Yeah, I think it's really great, and Ellen really kind of like steps into himself there at the end, and the Ariane is just like, it's just hilarious. She's a fun character. I think just like definitely again, like the Breeze development there in 2 chapters is like wild. From the first book, I mean, there's just a lot more dynamic to his character, which is really fun. So yeah, I'm enjoying it
immensely. It's cool to have more time. Like, obviously just the fact that there's a second book, we have more opportunities to learn about these characters. But I mean, this book is a little longer than the Final Empire was, so even more time to really hone in and kind of expand. You know, the first book, despite the fact it took us so long to read it, it really does rip pretty quick. It's a quick novel. You know, it's not one of these lengthy
high fantasy
books that, really we broke it into 4 parts because the one book was too, you know, like it was like a quick story to introduce you to what's going on, and so it's cool to have more, of course.
I agree, and it's cool to spend time with the characters in this kind of setting, right? It's not all just action, and I think
comedic relief.
Comedic relief, amazing. And Sanderson is really handling it really well. I think it's like it's not as much of a drag, not for me. Like I'm loving it, and I'm excited for the next like big action thing to happen. But like this is awesome. I'm here for this. Like I feel it just gives you that vibe that you're like a part of the crew and you're there and kind of like I feel like you're in the room watching this unfold and you're like like what the hell, Breeze? You know, you're kind of like right there with everybody. So I love the way that it's handled. And I love the foreshadowing with Ham guessing it, and I was just eating it up. When because like, you know, the entry to Breeze is like hauling it out of Set's camp to like make it, you know, Vin saving him.
He pissed someone off, right?
He did, and like, what did he do, right? And we don't really know. He's kind of like, everybody's like, well, it's Breeze. Like he probably just pissed him off because he's Breeze. You know, like that's not a tall order. So I just love that kind of coming to life in a cool way.
Oh, all right. Focused. We got serious chapters ahead.
We got some serious chapters ahead.
Get it together.
Yeah. Brevity aside.
So chapter 22. I think you're doing a great job with these snacks. You're really get them down pretty easily. So I think I'd love to hear your take on this one.
I'm a good chewer.
Hit me with it.
Yeah. He could trade words with the finest of philosophers and had an impressive memory, nearly as good as my own. Yet he was not argumentative. Very much like a personality description here as a part of this steel written scripture, if you will. You know, he is really just digging into kind of who he was as a person. I think we're talking about Alendi here and from the Quan perspective, but I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, just, hey, this guy's kind of stately. It adds to his, the aura that is starting to surround him to suggest maybe this is the guy. You know, that's kind of how I'm interpreting it.
For sure. I'm with you.
But that's down the hatch. Time to move on.
Into the meal. Into the mist.
Into the thick of it.
Yeah, into the thick of it.
Into the thick of it.
Nice,
yeah. So,
nice.
Vin perspective, she's in the mists, and the description here of the mists it kind of goes into a lengthy description, and it ends with, hey, the mists are eternal.
Yeah,
and I just thought that was an interesting way to describe them. Not to get too far down that rabbit hole, but I really honed in on the word of, hey, the mists are eternal.
Yeah, I like
eternal thing that's going to last.
I like the beginning being, beginning and the end is that it's chaos and stability,
right?
Which is cool and also eternal. So, pretty sick. I dig it.
So these mists, they are not calming her as they used to. She's constantly looking over her shoulder. Ellen used to be her piece too, besides the mist. Like, those were kind of the two things, but he's changing as well.
Right.
And so everything's changing, and things, why can't things just stay the same?
Yeah.
I think is kind of what some feelings we're having. And so Ellen, we learn, has about 6 or 7 mistings besides the core crew, at his disposal. And we learn that is pretty minuscule compared to the other rulers out in what was once the Final Empire. All these dominances around. It sounds like he's pretty lacking in the Allomancer department. Right. He's definitely at a disadvantage. And so Vin's up on top of the keep. She's looking out at a couple of guards standing guard at one of the entrances, and they're Ham's guards. And Ham actually walks out here. He speaks with the guards for some time and continues on into the mists. And so Vin, follows and signals for Orsur to basically kind of feign almost an attack, right? And Vin is here using her bronze, and she senses Ham burn pewter in anticipation of, hey, I think something's wrong. I'm getting attacked. What is going on? And instant relief of, okay, he's not the Khandra.
Right.
So she smiles and approaches him and says, hey, like, Ham, I'm glad you're here. Elend, he's struggling and he needs friends. His friends have departed. We've already heard about what Jastes Lakal is up to.
Yeah,
he's got his other friend Teldin, that he used to hang out with, and was Teldin a Hastine?
That's a good question. I do not recall.
Teldin Hastings.
Yep. All right, that makes sense.
So he was a Hastings. So, the Hastings and the Lacals, I remember, and because there's like the kind of the three powerhouses, and all the sons were,
right.
So Ham, we learn, is still looking for the imposter at Elend's request, but says it's kind of a tall order. We've got all these people working in the keep. It's a lot of people to search and figure out, and he just says, yeah, it's a task. And Vin tells Ham here, first person we're confiding with, I think, outside of Elend, that she's out of Atium and she's gonna die in her next Mistborn fight.
Right.
And she's seeking some advice from Ham because he's obviously been an Alamancer for a long time, and he says really the only way to fight a full Mistborn with Atium, like who has Atium, I should say, is to surprise them before the fight starts.
Yeah.
Get the drop on them, or you got to box them in a corner where no matter which path they take, even with their Atium, every single step, every single path will lead to death. And he says he doesn't know what the kingdom would do if they lost Vin.
Right.
So he has some strong feelings about Vin and her capabilities and what she does for the crew and for Luthadel and for the people, which I thought was really cool, and obviously some great insights into ATM and the fact that, like, yep, you're kind of fucked unless you get the drop on them or you paint it in a way that, like, there's no other option besides death.
Yeah, like it's impossible from like a physical perspective. Yeah, I really liked there's some good world building here too. He talks about it's like a game of Fets, which is a game that exists in the Final Empire, post-Final Empire times, where he's talking about a way to take a piece is to corner it. And it sounds kind of like almost like a strategy game like Go or chess or something like that, right, where you're taking pieces and things like that. So I enjoyed the world building there, and just kind of like how thugs who burn pewter, like they think about this stuff because, like, that's what they're like, they can out physically match anybody, any other Misting, but the Mistborn is going to be the problem because of the existence of ATM. So I thought that was cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I agree. All right, my place and my notes.
Yeah,
okay. So
Ham walks off. We talk to Orsur.
Yeah, Ham walks off, and Vin and Orsur kind of depart, and she explains to him, like what they're doing, and that they're trying to find the Khandra, and why they did what they did here with Ham. And Vin realizes that they discussed eating an Alamancer earlier and not being able to take their powers, like the Khandra wouldn't be able to use powers of an Alamancer they ate, but she does not know, if Khandra just have this ability from the jump, from the get-go. Like, hey, you said, like they can't use their powers, but what kind of powers do you have already?
And he's only going to answer the question as it's directly, like, stated, right? Like, she's recognizing that she has to be very specific. And, like, getting information out of him is difficult.
It's been a tall order for sure. Yeah. And she does ask, and he says he's not required to answer.
Yeah.
But then he says, but your plan will work, mistress. If you sense allomancy from someone, then they aren't a Khandra. So a real good change, I think, from what we've seen before, with some certainly some apprehension to share any further details. He's certainly giving in a little bit, and that's what we're going to see a lot more of that here through the rest of this chapter. So
it's a great chapter. Yeah, I like that.
Vin is appreciative. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I like the development here between the two characters and kind of like Vin's shifting in her understanding of Orsier. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, they're partners, right? Like they're literally partners in crime. So to see them getting along and I think building that relationship's awesome.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Vin here, she's super appreciative, but still apprehensive, and says that they need to find a way to work together. And Orsor asks, well, why do you hate me?
Yeah. Right.
And she says, well, you know, you ate Kelsier. And he just is like, nope, like, I don't buy that.
You're too smart.
You know, you're too smart for that. Yeah. What is it? Which calls her on it. And then she finally gives the truth. And she goes, you knew.
Yeah.
You knew about Kelsier's plan to die. And obviously to take over his body. And you didn't tell anyone. You didn't try to stop him. And he says, like, listen, I was bound by the contract. And she's like, well, you wouldn't even break the contract for his own good, like to, you know, someone who obviously she cares about.
Right.
And he says, well, why would I care about a master's own good or if a master of mine dies? And, you know, so he, you know, obviously Vin has all these amazing feelings for Kelsier and all these great things to say about who he was. And we're kind of seeing the side of Orsor of like, I was just doing my job. Like, you know, whether it's him dying, you die, like, who cares? You know, like, there's always going to be another master to take their place. So it doesn't, no skin off my back.
Right.
And Vin has this realization that she's never really asked Orsor about himself or his past, and that he's really been an outsider in their crew for 2 years now. You know, he got picked up with Kelsier as with a contract to play Lord Renault. Once that was over, he was part of Kelsier's plan to die and take over Kelsier and lift up the Ska spirits in the aftermath of Kelsier's death to enable the rebellion and the fall of the final empire. And now he's serving for Vin, who, you know, Kelsier prepaid for that contract. And
right.
So, you know, he's been with them for 2 years, but he's been on the outside, and she's just kind of finally realizing that. And he's never really received anything from the fall of the Empire. You know, it's just another contract for him to serve. And so she starts to ask him about his life before Kelsier, and he says he doesn't want to answer. And she kind of has the realization here, too, that we're similar. You know, he's had this life of serving beneath masters who didn't care for him. You know, they're there just for his abilities. You know, people who beat him and treat him like poo. You know, like just treat him so badly. And that's how she was raised. And he says, yes. And he finally, he here begins to open up. Like, he's like, yes, you are getting it. And he says that the masters are afraid of him and that of the things that he can do. And they're afraid that one day he will imitate them or take over their bones. And Vin explains how, like how she knows all this, because he's like, how do you know? Like, you know, how did you know I'm feeling this way and that people treat me so bad? And so she tells him about her past, because he was unaware of where she came from. He just kind of thought, oh, she's another person in Kelsier's crew, and he never really got the backstory on where she came from. And he goes, oh, you know, like Mistress Vin, I didn't know.
Right.
And so he interesting tidbits in this conversation. He talks about being beaten so bad with no restraint because he can't really die. Yeah. And that his masters knew this, and they'll just find him another body for him to take over, and then it's like nothing ever happened. And Vin talks about not being able to muster the courage to leave the cruise, unlike Orsor, who has to serve his contract. So, you know, she couldn't get the courage to leave. Orsor, even if he wants to leave, can't leave.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of in this similar boat. And he says here that the reason for the contract, great world building, is fear.
Yeah.
And that humans have feared Khandra abilities since the beginning.
Right.
You know, since the forming of the Empire, maybe.
Yeah. We don't know how beginning is the beginning, right? But yeah.
That's true.
Since the beginning of his story.
Yeah. And so Mistborn and Allomancers have hunted them to
This is
almost
interesting.
extinction,
Yep.
almost very terracy, and they then came up, the rest of the Khandra, with the idea of the contract in order to survive, and that the contract is their life. It's the way that they can continue to live,
Right.
and that they follow it at all costs. And men are not going to be afraid of something that they have control over and that they command, and you'll prevent their deaths, essentially.
Right.
And then kind of perks up here, and she hears, hey, the Mistborns hunted you, so they had to have had some way to find you. And, Orsor talks about having 10 more years of required service before he gets kind of what it sounds like is 2 years off.
Yeah.
In the Khandra homeland.
Yeah.
So just some weird, overarching world building of the Khandra culture, and why does he have to serve 10 years before he can come home? Who's making these rules? Where is home? Where's this Khandra homeland?
Yeah. Right.
Does he just get 2 years off, then he's got to go back out and do it all again? What purpose would that serve for the rest of the Khandra or the group as a whole? I don't know, man. There's so many questions.
It's very interesting. Yeah, there's a ton of questions from here, a ton of nuggets being dropped, little kernels everywhere. We're kind of, getting a flash in the pan here, and it's popping.
It's sizzling for sure.
Yeah, man, I love it. The Khandra are a really cool, I don't know, mythical creature or whatever you want to call it, magical creature or species in this series. I really like them. Really happy we finally met a little bit of the Koloss, another one of my favorite. I just love these two races, if you will, these species. They're just very interesting, very fascinating. So the more we get, the better, in my opinion.
Nice. I think so too. And so then apologizes and explains there is good in the world and there are good people. And Orsor, again, talks about how he was initially upset with the change from human body to wolfhound, but he has to admit that the body has its advantages. And Orsor says, then, end quotes, you are not my worst master.
And that's a compliment.
That is something of a compliment among our people, end quote.
Yeah.
And just super cool.
Well, it is cool, and it also kind of he does it twice where he mentions this very bad master, right? Someone who beat him all the way for the brink of death, and we can safely assume that Kelsier also probably wasn't this master, and so it's just he's referencing a former master, whoever they are. We have no idea, but this terrible master to him, right? And so that, and he's using it as a way to compliment Vin, which is really kind and not necessary, right? He's not required to say this to her. So he's choosing to kind of, I think, because she feels some guilt at being a master over someone, and so to her, it means a lot to her for him to say that. So I think he kind of goes out of his way, which is cool, and a development in their relationship. It's an act of kindness,
very much so,
which is dope. And
it is
awesome. And as return from her act of kindness for apologizing for her behavior, which is also cool and growth.
Yeah,
so
they're growing. Yeah, it's good growth.
It's awesome.
Vin is feeling ruthless at this time.
Yeah,
and she says, she wants to assassinate Straff and Set. But it, ultimately decides to kind of put that aside and focus on being better than Kelsier.
Yeah.
And she wants to trust in Ellen's way. And so she is hanging out here still at the keep, and she's thinking that she still doesn't feel at peace, doesn't feel like she's found her place in the world.
Right.
Which is kind of a big departure from the end of the first book, where she's
happy.
She had found the mists, and she'd found a crew and friends, and she went back to the boy who came back for her,
right.
And there's a lot of love, and it's a pretty big hey, yeah, my life went from bad to good to I don't know what I want, and so
not as bad, but not good anymore for sure. Yeah. Or just maybe what is good is transforming for her in another way, and she wants maybe more. I think definitely there's regression, but there's also like development in terms of like, I don't know, like a greater self-purpose or satisfaction or something. Perhaps.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So to wrap it up, she burns her tin in bronze, and she feels the mist spirit, which is always hanging around.
Yeah.
But there was something else distant, a faraway drum, and she can't figure it out before Orsor interrupts her and gets her attention and says, "Hey, there's this tall figure down on the ground. He's walking towards the keep." And so she drops down there, basically getting ready to maybe fuck this guy up, and then she has the realization that, hey, this is kind of tall.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? And then she has the realization, Sazed.
Yeah. So
Sazed's back, and he's got news of problems in the world.
Problems and troubles.
And so that's the end of 22.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's super, I think, very informative chapter.
We get to clear Ham.
We're clearing Ham, which is great. We love Ham, and we're glad that he's not the imposter. We've got relationship building between Vin and Orsor, and how, I mean, I think it's going to be critical or crucial, this relationship. And, you know, we're seeing Orsor depart from a little more of, well, you didn't tell me to do that, so I'm not doing it, to him kind of freely giving information or freely doing something that's not even in the contract. So it's really growing. And I think that'll probably play a big role, I'm assuming, in some future crazy, you know, incident or battle where, you know, Orsor probably doesn't have to either put his life on the line or risk himself. But, you know, hopefully the relationship's at a point then where he will, like, maybe sacrifice or do something in order to kind of, I guess, maybe save her or something like that. That's kind of where I feel like that's probably going.
Totally.
And then, yeah, who doesn't love Sazed? He's the best.
Yeah, so glad he's back. He's our guy. Sazed, he's our man. If he can't do it, no one can. Yeah, I'm a big fan. But I think, we got one more here, a little snack.
I think we'll just keep ripping through it.
Take us off here. The terrorists rejected him, but he came to lead them. Another short snack. I think definitely, like, we see evidence of this with, like, Reshek rejecting him. Like in the first book, a lot of, like, the anti-Alendi stuff and how he's supposed to be a terroristman. You know, like the hope that like piece was like people were really struggling with that. Like, he can't be the one. He's not one of us, right? Like, he's this outsider from Plenium, and then, you know, but he came to lead them, which is interesting as well, because it's like lead them. Is this before he starts to purge them?
You're right.
You know, like, yeah, it's kind of
it would have to be, because he's not the one purging them, right?
Exactly, and it's Reshek, which is even more crazy. Yeah, so.
Well, I just kind of had this fun idea of, if all the terrorist prophecies... Well, I guess we didn't... Okay, maybe not. So in Reshek's mind, it should have been a terroristman that should have been the hero of ages and should have been in those shoes.
Yes.
I just wonder if some of the terrorist prophecies specifically maybe had said that at some point.
I don't think
that's why they rejected him. We don't get that.
Yeah,
but it'd be fun if they did, and that like Sazed ends up being like the hero, or like, you know, I think that'd be fun.
That would be fun. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, no, I think definitely, like, at this point we don't know that, but like Reshek calls that out in the first book, you know, where he's like, he doesn't like Alendi, and he kind of hates him, and he, you know, kills him, and everything like that. So I think that's kind of where it's coming from. But yeah, no, that's an interesting theory. I guess we'll just have to, you know, read and find out. Who is the hero of ages?
Who is the hero of ages?
Yeah, we know it wasn't Alendi.
Well, we're not going to find out in chapter 23, but we are going to learn some fun stuff here. And so, diving into the dessert of this episode, we've got the crew who has been awoken and are in the kitchens, and they are here to listen to Sazed tell his tale. And they are in the kitchens of the keep, and we're in an Elend perspective. So, you know, he informs them, hey, 20,000 Kolos coming at you, Lord Lakal. He's here coming for you. And Ellen's thinking that 20,000 Koloss is more dangerous than 50,000 of Straff's men.
Right.
And so it's a big danger and a big deal. And Sazed, in his appearance, hasn't eaten. He seems very famished. His clothes are dirty, but his hands and his face are clean. He still takes pride in caring for himself in that regard. But, to see him in such a state is pretty, I think, eye-opening for the crew, because he's normally someone who's very put together. And I think it tells the tale of the urgency that Sazed felt to get here and provide this information to his friends.
Right.
And Elend still has this letter, I guess, that he's writing. He's penning this letter to the Assembly regarding his decision to meet with Straff, and how it's an informal meeting and not a parley. And it sounds like when they found out about this, maybe before his own letter, they are not happy. Mm-hmm. And so we're certainly going to see more about that in the future. Spook is here as well. He's sitting away from the table and flirting with a kitchen maid. And I just have, again, this thought of, like, maybe he's the Kandra. Because, like, while we haven't seen the growth and we have heard about, okay, he's lost his accent and he said that thing when Breeze first showed up about, like, well, I need to find myself a woman and, like,
yeah, right,
all this stuff. Or no, that wasn't when Breeze, it was when Vin and Ham were sparring.
And Alan and him were talking with clubs, yeah.
With clubs. And, so, like, yes, he seems to maybe be interested in girls, but it's certainly a large departure for his, like, I can't even talk to a woman.
Right.
And, like, almost even look at Vin to just be kind of flirting with
and they mentioned it's kind of, like, unsuccessfully. I think they call it out.
It's unsuccessful.
Where he's like, not doing it well, but he's trying.
I just don't know if that's him, like,
right, yeah.
I don't know enough about what's happened with him in the last year to see if that's, like, something that's out of the ordinary. So my suspicions have peaked up kind of for him a little bit.
Right.
So Sazed informs here about the Koloss and Lakal and how Lakal seems out of it. He's not himself. And Ham has men from the south who said they were previously serving near the Koloss camp there, and that when the Lord Ruler died, the Koloss went apeshit and attacked local villages and cities.
Right.
And so Breeze says, hey, this also happened in the northwest.
Right.
And, there's a group about 500 Koloss there, and Set had to deal with them, and his army did kill them, but not before they lost about 2,000 men.
It's a 4-to-1 ratio.
4-to-1. It's not great. Yeah. Sounds like we might need all three armies to fight the Koloss: Luthadel, Set, and Straff.
Right.
And so Sazed said that they're, at least a week away 1 week ago.
Right.
I saw them a week ago, and it took me a week to get here, so it's hard saying when they'll show up.
Right.
They do appear to have been in that camp for a while, but we just don't know. And so he talks about basically staying the course. Ellen does. No one wants Koloss around. Having a third army in the fray during the siege really only benefits Elend and the crew, and while it will hurt Set and Straff and their goals. And Elend is super nervous about this, but he is comforted because he's got Vin's arm around him as they're sitting here. And the chef, I thought this was a fun tidbit, brought Sazed a meal of steamed barley with strips of steak and some spiced legettes, which this is really a step up from what the crew was eating in the first book, when it was like, oh, yeah, would you like some mush? Yeah. So, strips of steak and barley, and like, it's...
They're eating the barley wraps. The mush was out in the countryside. They were eating, like, the barley wraps. I remember. Yeah, they're, like, kind of interesting world building with the food cuisine there. But yeah, definitely step up. You're absolutely right.
Sazed then went on to talk about the mists and what he's been observing, and he's not really necessarily believed here, though Elend is definitely weighing his words and thinking, man, one more thing to deal with, as this mist just kind of seems to be creeping towards the central dominance.
Right.
We get this fun exchange between Breeze and Ham, and even Elend jumping in the fray of everyone kind of ragging on each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And Sazed is not eating.
Yeah, right.
And Elam's like, hey, man, eat your food. And he's like, well, when we're finished here, yeah. And
it's not polite.
Vin's like, well, Sazed, you're not a servant anymore. You don't have to do that. And he says, well, it's a matter, of being polite. And Ellen is insistent and says, I love this. It says, like Sazed, you can be polite later. You're famished and amongst friends and like to eat. And Sazed gives him kind of an odd look and obeys. And I loved this.
Yeah.
I thought, like, Sazed's heart has to be swelling here. He's been talking about going back to Luthadel and seeing his friends and how important they are. And he's having all of these really, I think, very intense conflict in himself as far as whether that's the right thing to do or does he stay and teach as the synod has told him. And like I teared up when I read that. I don't know, like, but like I was like, man, that's so cool. It made like it just made him feel like loved and welcome, and I was like, that's an amazing feeling. Yeah,
no, it's super cool, and it also shows a little bit of like Ellen is like growing too and coming back and seeing this growth, and I think Sazed's starting to piece together like maybe where that growth could be coming from, possibly.
Sure.
So I think there's definitely there's a lot of like warmth and happiness to be told to eat. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Sazed. So he continues between bites and is talking about, hey, the mists just aren't out during the day, but they're also killing people. And Vin's like, what?
Yeah, right.
And, I forgot here, you mentioned it earlier, but forgot that Breeze's name is Ladrian.
Yes,
And so, Lord Ladrian, the alliteration. No, you're fine. I just, like, I put it in my notes at this point of, like, that's funny.
There's, like, 2 mentions of it in the first book, and I'm a fan of knowing that, because he doesn't go by that ever if he can avoid it. He wants just to be called Breeze, And so, it's just funny how he's like, don't call me that.
No, thanks. So Sazed thinks there's a connection with the mists and the Lord Ruler's death. Like, the timeline just adds up.
Right.
And Ham asks Sazed about, well, what about the traveling that you're supposed to be doing? And Sazed's like, no, this is more important. I need to figure this out. And Ellen's like, well, you're welcome to stay as long as he wants. And Aldrian appears. Yeah. She's dressed in a robe, but she's got messy hair. And it appears to Ellen and to Vin, they're very suspicious, that she's here spying. She's probably been up since Breeze was awoken, which then that asks the question, were they in a room together?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Suspicious.
And so they think she's been up for at least 30 minutes, because that's how long they've all been up, and that she's possibly been dropping some eaves, as Sam Gamgee would say.
Yeah.
And, I think that she probably was actually sent as a spy by her father, and that she's not really here just seeking, asylum.
Right.
That's like, why else would she be up? Like, and she messed her hair up on purpose to make it look like she just got out of bed, but she clearly was still dressed up enough to like be like, well, you did some stuff. You've certainly been up for a while, so I don't know. It's just she's got some deception and some tradecraft going on. So. The crew leaves. Vin and Ellen talk about the convos that they just had, and Vin is impressed that Ellen picked up on Aldrian's dress and being awake, and that he's being more observant and kind of paying more attention to his surroundings.
Yeah.
And she says she doesn't trust the night tonight, and that she's going to go back out and hang outside of Ellen's window, and that he can sense there's something she's not telling him.
Right.
He doesn't know what it is, but he doesn't want to be paranoid with her. And it's like, she's not telling you. Well, also, you didn't listen to her when she said there was something in the mists that one time, and like you just blew her off. So like, maybe she doesn't want to tell you anymore. But also, of course, she's not going to tell you that she's kind of got this crazy little boo thing that she's. I mean, it's not, but it is, but it's not, but it is.
Yeah, for sure. She is definitely hiding something from him. Without a doubt. I think it is interesting. He's picking up on it.
Perspective change to Sazed. He's walking to his rooms and having thoughts about being served versus him serving in life, and how like that was another time, another life, like a lifetime ago almost. And
right.
He's got concerns that all these connections he's making with the mist aren't right. Like he's just maybe stringing random things together, and what if he's wrong? And as he gets to his room and as the servant leaves, he realizes there's light coming from underneath the door. And so he opens the door, and who do we find but another terrace person, Tindwyl. And she got his note, apparently, right? She's here.
Yep.
And he supposedly did not get hers, according to her.
She's a little pissed at him.
she's a little mad. And she says, you're supposed to be teaching near the Burnlands, new term.
Yeah.
And he said, well, yeah, but this is more pressing. And she doesn't understand why he's always going his own way and ignoring the Synod.
Right.
And Sazed says that Tynwell appears to be doing good work for Elend. Elend seems, stately and kingly. And she just kind of shrugs it off and says that there's a lot left to be done. And she compares Sazed to two rapscallions, Vedzan and Rindel, two other terrorists who seem to be maybe shirking their responsibilities, and bucking the Synod's advice. And she's like, I would expect this from them, but not you.
Right.
Everyone wants to look up to Sazed, and for you to be a leader, she says, but it's hard when you're shirking your responsibilities and the will of the Synod. And he's certainly feeling probably down about this. But he does say he's got some resolve and says that he would rather be known as arrogant and foolish than risk danger to the people of the land.
Yeah.
And, they wrap up their convo. It's pretty brief. And she, gets up to leave. And as she's passing him, she grabs, takes his hand briefly and looks into his eyes. And he removes her hand. And then she just shakes her head and she leaves. Yeah. And that's the end of 23.
Yeah. He says one thing I thought was really interesting. Because he's almost like a little defiant, to the Synod in a way that I just wanted to call out, because she's like, you're not going to find anything, and he says, then I'll be proven wrong. But I kindly remember the last time I disobeyed the Synod, the result was the collapse of the final empire. So a little bit of hubris here, because I didn't listen to you, we're free now.
So come at me, bro.
Yeah, totally. A little bit of confidence, and I like to see that. I like to see that in Sazed, that he's on the right path, and I think it's reaffirming kind of that he's in the right place, right? From earlier where he's smiling and he's happy to be back with his friends. He's in the right place, and those two things can coincide, right? Doing this mission and being with the people that he cares about.
Well, Tynwell, even when she's talking to, I think, Elend about it, says that Sazed needs to be more confident. She had that same thought. So, she's seeing a side of him that she probably hasn't really seen. And so it just, obviously, the hand touching, the look makes you feel stuff. Was there a relationship there? Was there, are they siblings? Yeah, are they lovers? Are they, who knows? And hopefully we get into it. That's obviously my goal.
Yeah, we know, and we know he's a eunuch, and he's been a eunuch for a long time. So the complicated nature of that is very interesting to ponder. I think, there's a lot to unpack there, and a lot packed into that small interaction. So it's pretty great. I'm so happy that Sazed's back. I think at this point, really the crew as it is back together. You know what I mean? Everybody's back, and except for Marsh. Marsh is. We don't know where Marsh is. He had left Sazed. What's Marsh up to? But I think that's kind of the outlier right now. It's where's Marsh and what is he up to?
Where's Marsh?
But and how is Marsh? Everyone's always asking where is Marsh, but
where is asking? No one's asking how is Marsh. Amazing.
Yeah, so
maybe he's in the marshes.
Yeah, possibly. So yeah, great little stint there, buddy. Excited to keep on reading and finding out. If you had any final thoughts, I'd like to solicit them.
No, we ripped through. I really enjoyed the chapters. I think we got to see a really fun side of a couple of the characters, and we really got some great info. I laughed a lot when I was reading these couple of chapters, which made me excited to read.
Yeah,
totally. And I think these books. You've read everything, and so in the Cosmere, and so you are certainly about it. And I'm coming in new, and I certainly like fantasy, and it's. I think at the pace that we read the first book, I certainly enjoyed it, but it was hard to almost get into it.
Right.
Because it was so few and far between. And this book, at the pace that we're reading, we're accomplishing 4 chapters at a time, 5 chapters at a time. I think it's really just putting us in a place where I'm getting more into the story than I probably was in the first book.
For sure.
And that's been a lot of fun for me.
Right.
Because, of course, you want to be enjoying what you're reading. Not that I didn't enjoy the first book, but this is just a different I'm really changing my worldview and my perspective by how we're consuming the content.
Yeah,
and so
same.
That's been really fun, and it's fun to be able to rip through things and
I think it's a good balance.
See how it's going.
Yeah, I think it's a good balance that we're finding here, and we appreciate everybody else helping us along the way and staying with us, and staying on track with us. But I think for your experience, which is very important to me, and a lot of what the podcast is exploring is the new reader experience. I do like to kind of hear that, because it's not about what I know, it's about kind of how it is to read through this book, and I really just want to be setting you up for success in any way I can, and kind of a guide of asking questions and bringing up ideas and creating possibilities, and I don't want anyone to feel bad if I had them think an idea that didn't end up being true, or or something, sure, or otherwise, right? It's all kind of up to you. So hopefully I can keep hopefully I'm doing a good job of that, and keep on creating more questions, and kind of just trying to highlight a couple fun things along the way. So yeah.
You're certainly dropping, I think, great questions and tickling or teasing parts of my brain that I oh, what about this? And it's oh, I never even thought about it that way. Or you've certainly corrected me in my thinking of, you're well, what if you thought about it this way? And I was oh, you know what? I think you're right. I misunderstood the text in a very applicable, hey, this is how that's happening.
Right.
And I didn't have maybe the understanding. And certainly someone who's been through the Cosmere, you certainly have a good grasp on how things go, and what allomancy is, and how it
certain
works.
things. So, certain things.
Still waiting to read and find out on some things. I'm
sure definitely, and still reading and finding out with the rest of the Cosmere fandom. I mean, there's still questions in these books that don't have answers yet, because they're still writing them. I mean, Mistborn is. Era 3 is being written right now, and there's plans, Era 4 is the final era, and it's a progression through a history, essentially, of a planet, of a sphere, of a world. So it's pretty cool. And then there's Stormlight and all this other stuff. So yeah, we could go all day with that. But anyhow, I appreciate it, and I want to do some shout outs. Shout out to Moms. Thanks, Moms.
Shout out to the rest of you. We appreciate you listening. We really hope that over the next week, as you're reading and you're finding some things out on the next couple chapters, which we'll let you know which ones to read, just check our socials. But we just hope that you have a week full of shenanigans.
Oh, yeah.
And that you guys just stay misty out there.
Stay misty out there. We love y'all.
Just from a couple of misty boys to you.
Yep, absolutely. Take care, and looking forward to seeing you next week.
All right, guys.
Out.
Out.
Nice.